everybody online and offline. I would say, how to say it, good afternoon or good evening or good night or good morning. Very welcome to the 5th lecture of Fine Traditional Chinese Culture. I'm Shen Weirong, or Weirong Shen, as you like. I'm professor for Tibet and Buddhist Studies at Tsinghua University. I'm a historian and a philologist of Buddhism. And today I'm going to talk about the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, a quote in Sino-Tibetan Buddhism. I think why I choose this topic for the lecture on fine traditional Chinese art may need some explanation. So if we talk about fine traditional Chinese culture, we may think about mainly, for example, the 4 books of 5 canons, or the Han Chinese culture tradition. But the topic I choose today is Buddhism, and especially Tibetan Buddhism. So I choose this topic based on my conviction. China is not a pure Han Chinese country. So we include many ethnic groups in one country called China. China is not a pure Han Chinese. And second, I think Chinese traditional culture is very comprehensive and penetrating and in depth. So it's not only like we would say Confucianism is our culture tradition. We also have to include Buddhism, Taoism, and others. And you may think that Buddhism is to Chinese is an alien religion. It came from India. I would say the Indian Buddhism does not alive now, or Indian Buddhism was dead long time ago. Already in the 13th century, Buddhism is still flourishing in China and elsewhere. So if we talk about Buddhism, actually, we may mainly think of Chinese Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, also other Buddhist traditions in South Asia countries. And that's why I choose this topic for our talk on traditional or fine traditional Chinese culture traditions. So Chinese culture tradition is not only Confucianism, it also has to include Buddhism. And Buddhism has been long a Chinese tradition, and is already localized, synthesized. The Tibetan Buddhism did the same way. It came from India, also from mainland China, but also in more or less Tibetanized in the process of the introduction and spread of Buddhism into Tibet, or the transformation of Buddhism in Tibet too. So the traditional Chinese culture has to be the multi-ethnic, multi-traditional. So that's my conviction. That's why I choose this topic. Second. Then, before I explain what is Bodhisattva, what is Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, I want to draw your attention to one scholar and one book of her. Professor Yu Jingfang is still a leading scholar internationally who specialized in exclusively in the study of Guanyin, the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. And she was a Shenyang professor, American of Chinese Buddhism, at the Department of Religion and East Asian Languages and Cultures at Columbia University. And her very influential book called Guanyin, the Chinese Transformation of Avalokitesvara, published in 2001 by Columbia University Press. Actually, her influence started much earlier in the international scholarly community, especially in Chinese Buddhist studies. And so far, this book is how to say, most informational and most scholarly work on the code of Avalokitesvara and also the Guanyin worships. And I not only wanted to draw your attention to this book, but I wanted to tell you her personal stories and her personal experience with the salvation of the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. I think once Professor Yu gave a talk in Taiwan at the conference I also participated about her personal experience with the Bodhisattva Guanyin or the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. You see, she was born in 1938, and when she was little, and she was staying at Chongqing when the time of the Second World War, when China was in the most difficult time, was the 8-year-long anti-Japanese war. And I think it was 45 or 46, the war was finally ended. The Japanese surrendered. And Professor Yu, as a little girl, was her entire family, she was 6 persons, wanted to go back to the inland. I forgot where exactly it's Nanjing. And the whole family waited to get a ticket for taking the boat, the ship from Chongqing to Nanjing. And the ship waited for a whole week long. Finally, they got the tickets. But before went aboard, and her grandmother tells the whole family that we should not get on board on the boat. And the family was, how to say, astonished and couldn't believe. So we waited for such a long time. It's a very had a rare chance to get the boat, go down the boat and go back to their hometown. But the grandma insisted, and they didn't get on board. And several, I think hours or day long, I don't remember. The boat had a Titanic-like disaster. All passengers on the boat were dead, and the whole family was survived. And then Yu Jingfang herself was sort of from this moment on convinced their whole family was saved by the Guanyin Tusa, the Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, because her grandma told her before the family just started to go on board, Guanyin Tusa whispered to her and asked her to stop their whole family to get on the boat. And this story sounds very incredible, but actually in Chinese society, among those practitioners of Buddhism, you may hear such and such similar stories everywhere. And maybe you will not believe. But if the story was told by Professor Yu Jingfang, the absolute authority of the Guanyin studies, it sounds much more credible or incredible. but Eugene Fang actually started to study, do research on Guanyin since very early of her academic career, and actually her whole life is devoted to the study of Guanyin Pusa. So I think this maybe is a good example to show how much the Chinese people have the great faith in the Avalokitesvara. On all those the stories of how the Guanyin Pusa transmit, save the people, or gave the people bless, or actually save the people out of all kinds of difficult situations is very, very popular. That's the story one among them. Because it's told by Professor Yu, so I was very much actually touched this story. And then, if we wanted to know about the Buddhist tradition of the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara code, you may ask first, who are the Bodhisattvas? So I think everybody say Pusa, and I often actually encounter such situation, like if you are, how to say, respect to somebody, very grateful to somebody, you may say, you are really a good man, and you are my Bodhisattva, 你真是个好人，你是我的菩萨。Or you may say, if this person is extremely kind and loving, you said, oh, he has a Pusa 心肠. Then who are the Pusas? Why Pusa is a real good man? And what the Pusa 心肠 means? So if you study Buddhism, you know very well the Bodhisattva. So you actually the Bodhisattvas has a great aspiration to save, to rescue people, save the people from the endless sufferings in the samsaric world, and before they became Buddha, before they attained the enlightenment. So Pusa or Bodhisattva is a Chinese transcription of the Sanskrit word Bodhisattva. The Bodhi means enlightenment or awakening. So the Sattva means the being. That means actually the Bodhisattva means the enlightening one, the enlightened one. So in Chinese, sometimes we call it 觉者, because 觉者 is a Buddha. So then, actually, why the Bodhisattva is a good man? Because he is living among us. So he is a man. I remember in the early days, the German philosopher Hegel had a great doubt on the Tibetan reincarnation systems, and said, how could a human being at the same time is also a god? If he knows more about the Bodhisattva ideal, we think different, because Pusa is indeed also a human being. So he is an enlightened being and living among us. And that's the meaning of the literal meaning of the Bodhisattva. And then where the Bodhisattvas come from and why they are living with us. Actually, to understand this, and we have to know some essential teachings of Buddhism. So Buddhism actually is basically divided into two traditions. One is Hinayana Buddhism. We call it also the Buddhism of a little vehicle. Somebody don't like this term. mainly the Hinayana or Theravada Buddhism. And then the other one is how to say, the Mahayana Buddhism, the Buddhism of the great vehicle. And the huge difference is between the Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism. Is the Mahayana Buddhism has a Bodhisattva ideal. The Bodhisattva ideal, if you're practicing the Hinayana Buddhism, you think about it, you imagine you have to, how to say, listening to, thinking of, and practicing Buddhist teaching for 7 lifetimes in order to attain the Arahat, the Rohan, became the Arahat. So the 7 lifetimes, you never think of anything wrong and do anything wrong. Otherwise, you even after the 7 lifetimes, you still not become Arahat. So you still have to continue your religious, how to say, the practice for attaining the Buddhahood. But in Mahayana Buddhism, they developed, so it's called the Bodhisattva ideal. So you may have heard about the term called the 立地成佛. So 放下屠刀, 立地成佛. Why you can become Buddha so immediately, even you did so much wrong things, even you killed the people, you still are able to become a Buddha. That's exactly what the Bodhisattva ideal means. So you are going to be rescued by the Bodhisattva. So you are not able to attain the enlightenment by yourself. You are not wise enough. You does not have possess enough wisdom. So the Bodhisattva who actually live among us, and he or even she going to save you. And that's actually the basic principle of the Mahayana Buddhism. So the Bodhisattva ideal. So the Bodhisattvas is among us everywhere. So that's actually also based on the 2 basic principles of Buddhism. So it's the wisdom and the skillful means. So in Chinese, is 智慧和方便. So the Bodhisattva ideal actually is a typical practice of the skillful means. So you are not able to how to say, realize the enlightenment by yourself. You are going to be saved, going to be rescued by the Bodhisattva through his or her how to say, all potent skillful means. That's exactly. And then Avalokitesvara in the code in Chinese Buddhism. So actually, you may heard a lot of, as the Professor Eugene Fang's personal story is one of them. There's thousands of such stories. And people say actually the Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, the Guan Yin Pusa is the god of East Asia. Buddha teaching was spread by the how to say, incarnated Buddha Shakyamuni. And actually, Shakyamuni became Buddha and attained Nirvana and left our how to say, our world. So he's no more with us. And the Bodhisattvas actually stay in this world and try any possible means to help us. That's why actually we are closely or more directly benefited from the helps and from the Bodhisattvas. That's why actually Bodhisattva is more actually loved and worshipped by all ordinary people. And then especially Avalokitesvara, Guanyin. So Guanyin have a lot of terms. You have to actually relate the Avalokitesvara code with the Pure Land teaching. I think you everybody heard about the Namo Amitofu. Everybody is reciting the Namo Amitofu. In your life, you have to recite it over millions times until you are saved by Buddha Amitabha. But I would tell you is as you may sometimes misunderstood what's the meaning of Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitofu, you think the Amitofu, there's no Amitofu in the south. Truly, there's no Amitofu in the south. Amitofu is a country, the Buddha land is in the west. But this Namo is not south, there's no Amitabha in the south. Namo is just the Chinese, how to say the literally translation or transcription of the Namo. Namo means pay respect to Buddha Amitabha. So I think in the older time, I should also Namo is Namo Amitofu. But why I think is Avalokitesvara code is directly related to Namo Amitofu. We Chinese culture tradition, Buddhist tradition, I think the most dominant is so-called Pure Land teachings, Jingtu. In the Pure Land, we are talking about the Buddha Amitabha. So Amitabha is so-called the Buddha of Buddha body of enjoyment, the Bao Shengfu. And he never comes to our country here. So he lives in the Xifang Jile Shijie, the Western paradise, the supreme bliss. Is called the Sukhavati, or in Tibetan, Dewa Jing. So he lives there. But Avalokitesvara is actually the spiritual son of the Buddha Amitabha. Or like in Chinese Buddhism, sometimes say Avalokitesvara is also one of the emanation of Buddha Amitabha. I believe the Tibetan saying is more correct. Actually, it's a spiritual son, Xingzi, of the Amitabha. You see the picture right above one. The two donors, the Gongyang Ren is making the pay respect to the Buddha Guanyin. Avalokitesvara, other one you show just under one you show the Amitabha other Avalokitesvara wear a crown, and on that is the statue, the picture of Amitabha. The Buddha Amitabha is everywhere. So understand why we have to always say Namo Amitofu. So it's just not like that's actually is express the wish that finally I can be saved by the Buddha Amitabha, and I can after I'm being died, so I can go to the Western paradise of supreme bliss to enjoy all the enjoyment as the Buddha Amitabha and become Buddha. That's actually the wish behind this phrase Namo Amitofu. Actually, this is exactly the same as we recite Om Mani Padme Hum. I'm going to talk about it later. So it is the same thing. When you to invoke Avalokitesvara, say, I'm here, I need help, I'm in this and that difficult situation. So I'm praying to the Buddha Amitabha. Actually, the Buddha Amitabha will not direct come to save you, but he will send the Avalokitesvara and to come to you and help you in any difficult situation. I think that this kind of faith system is how to say seen everywhere. So in the influential sphere of Chinese Buddhism. That's why I think that in Japan and in Korea, that's why actually the Chinese Buddhism is called East Asian Buddhism. That's why people say the Bodhisattva is the god of East Asia. So that's then exactly the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So actually the number of Bodhisattvas is countless. So there, why the Avalokitesvara is especially popular among Chinese or Tibetan Buddhists, because we had a very, how to say, the special relationship. But I forgot to say it here. So the two places I show on the cover page of my PowerPoint presentation. So you see the in the left side is a picture of the Putosan as a new actually Guanyin, how to say, the power place of Avalokitesvara code, still under construction in Ningbo Putosan. On the right side, everybody knows, is Budala Palace. So you may think there's not related, but actually both are actually the palace of the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, Puto and Budala is the same words. So the shows both Chinese and Tibetan Buddhists had a very special relationship to Avalokitesvara. So why I'm going to explain. So you may, I think if I went to both places. So all those two places are so impressive, bring me to here. So it's incredible. So I hope so you are going to visit those sacred sites, especially the power place for the Avalokitesvara code. And who are exactly the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara? So as you may in China, in Chinese you call it Guanyin or Guan Zizai or Guan Shi. So there are a lot of literally explanations about the words. Because I'm not going to repeat those. Avalokitesvara is indeed is called one who always looks upon all sentient beings with the eye of compassion and loving kindness. So we in Chinese are often called 大慈大悲、救苦救难观世音菩萨。So the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara is the Buddha, how to say, is a manifestation of the compassion. So he is sent by the Buddha Amitabha into this world to save all the people. And you may heard about the 千手千眼观音菩萨. You look at the above picture within 大足石刻, the rock carvings is so impressive because 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. Why he he has to have so many hands and eyes. Actually, 1,000 is not a correct number. It means just countless. Because the Avalokitesvara can see all the people in all different difficult situations, and he is able to reach everybody, see everybody with his how to say, countless eyes, with countless hands. So we'll extend his hands to help him. That's why he possesses so many hands and so many eyes. And the most important source for the Avalokitesvara quote is the Lotus Sutra. So you may all listen. People often say the Lotus Sutra is the Bible of East Asia, or the Bible of Chinese. And is actually the 24th chapter of the Lotus Sutra is called the gateway to everywhere of the Bodhisattva who observes the sounds of the world. 观音菩萨土门品. So I think it's often brought printed separately as a one sutra called the Guanyin Sutra. So it's, if you read this chapter of the Lotus Sutra, you actually mean what is the practice of the Avalokitesvara code. Actually, it does tell you, so when you you are in any difficult situation, you just call Avalokitesvara's name and then get his attention, and he is able to save you immediately. Actually, that's exactly the function of the reciting of Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6 syllables mantra. So I'm not a practitioner of Buddhism. I often recite Om Mani Padme Hum if I think I'm in some dangerous situation. So I need the help from the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So it's if you say Namo Amitofo, it will have the same function, but it comes too slow. If you say Om Mani Padme Hum, maybe the help comes much quicker and sooner. So that's Avalokitesvara. Just missed one. We have to go up. Other one. No. The other one, especially in Chinese, we see that the Avalokitesvara in China underwent a great transformation. So in India, in Tibet, and the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara is always a male figure. But in Chinese, it can be a female. Mostly, it became a female, so the goddess. And the Avalokitesvara has a lot of different manifestations. One is very popular in China is a baby bringer. So it's Songzi Guanyin. So actually this is based on a passage in the Guanyin Sutra. So it's called the Guanxin Pusa. I just read the English translation. The Bodhisattva of Guanyin, the Avalokitesvara, has such great power. It is so beneficial that all sentient beings should always be mindful of it. Mindful of it, as it. If a woman desires a son and worships the Bodhisattva, she will give birth to a male of good fortune and wisdom. If she desires a daughter, she will give birth the female with good looks, who will be loved by all for her virtues. The translation is not quite exact, the philologically correct, but you know what that means. But actually, that is just one of the great powers, or great, how to say, the of Avalokitesvara. He can do much more. I think with Chinese, we have the tradition, we always want to have a song. That's why the Avalokitesvara became sort of a baby bringer. So it's very interesting. It's very, very popular in Chinese Buddhist tradition. But then, now I think I came to the Tibetan, the Avalokitesvara code in Tibetan. So I already mentioned many times about the 6 syllabus mantra. So it's very, very popular now. I think sometimes the popularity goes too far. The people misused this 6 syllabus mantra. I want to show you a small, how to say the shooting in the very famous Chinese new movie about the Tang Xuanzhuang. This movie was made several years ago. It's a life story of the great Chinese Buddhist Xuanzang. Okay, we just stop here. So I don't know, you got my intention why I show you this, how to say the short, the passage of this movie. And you know, in this movie, the background lyric, the background melody, the music is reciting the 6 syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. I really went to the cinema. This movie I was invited to watch by some friend. Then I was shocked. So obviously, the film director needs academic advisor like me. So in the time of Tang Xuanzang, there's still no such practice of reciting the 6 syllable mantras. And the 6 syllable mantra came into China proper much later. This is a special or characteristic feature of Tibetan Buddhism. So it's not in Chinese Buddhist culture tradition, at least in that time. So I will show when actually the Avalokitesvara code or the 6 syllable mantra became popular in China. So I show you a story. So in the meantime, I think you know the story well, the early Ming history. The Emperor Yongle used the throne. He was not the legitimate successor of his father. He killed his nephew and became the emperor. And then in order to make some, how to say, political propaganda for the legitimacy of his emperorship, I would say. And he invited the Tibetan Lama, the fifth Gamapa Lama, at that time is very famous, called the Dabo Fawan, the Dharma kings of the great jewel. And to Nanjing did a great ceremony in memorial of Yongle's father and mother. And that became a great political show. And the people now in the West call it Nanjing miracles. And you see a lot of like auspicious things happened. Actually, if you read the Tibetan text, it's quite usual. So often when by this kind of occasion, I think the flowers will falling down like the rain in the time. You know, all those how to say, the miracle things happened. And the people are so excited. It became the biggest event, the religious event, the political event in the beginning of the Ming history. But obviously at that time, people started to recite the 6 syllable mantras. But they're among those Chinese literates and Chinese officials. Most people actually were excited about this miracle, but some people had some doubt on Tibetan Buddhism. And I saw one paragraph in the Ming literates, how to say, Biji, his notes. He attended this event, and he asked his followers, he said, do you know what it means, Om Mani Padme Hum? His follower couldn't answer, and then said, let me tell you what Om Mani Padme Hum means. So Om Mani Padme Hum means nothing than Ran An Lai Ba Ni Hum. So let me cheat and fool you. So why? So if the Buddha, the living Buddha, the Dabo Fawa is like the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, and he is able to do anything and able to save us from all the sufferings we suffer now in the world. So why does he still need a translate, interpret? So, and why we still have this kind of blood? Why we other ways we have Zhou, so Gan, Han Zai, Lao Zai, everywhere. Why he cannot save us from this? So the Om Mani Padme Hum means nothing else than just Ran An Lai Ba Ni Hum. But this, I think, at least shows at the beginning of the Ming time, the Chinese also knows the 6 syllabus mantra, the Om Mani Padme Hum. But he is certainly misunderstood it. Then what actually exactly means the Om Mani Padme Hum? Yeah. So actually, the 6 syllabus mantra is a foundation of the Avalokitesvara code. I think many years ago, I read a book written by a German, how to say, pseudo Buddhist, the Lama Govinda. And he talk about I think it's called the white cloud, and the foundation of the Tibetan Tantric Buddhism. The exact name I forgot. But he tried to explain what's the meaning of the 6 syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum means. Actually, there's a how to say, a long time struggle, a long time controversy among the Buddhist scholars in the world to figure out what actually Om Mani Padme Hum means. Actually, the literally meaning is all called Om, the jewel in the lotus home. What that mean? That's actually the whole, how to say, the academic approach is wrong. Actually, the mantra does not have to have a meaning. The mantra is a magical word. For here is a invocation to the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So you does not have to know the meaning, the literal meaning of the 6-syllable mantra. Maybe it's wrong still. You own the jaw in the lotus, or the jaw and the lotus home. It's the same. But if you have to read it, how to say correctly, pronounce it correctly, Om Mani Padme Hum, then you will, how to say, your prayer will be heard by the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So maybe you say Namo Amitofo, you does not have to be correct. It's Namo Amitofo is okay, because that's a prayer. But here it is a mantra. You cannot pronounce it wrong. But what's the real meaning of the 6-syllable mantra? So I spent a lot of time to study that. Until very recently, I found a lot of Chinese translations of the ritual text of Avalokitesvara code in the Yuan and the Ming time. And then I became sure what's real the function or real the beneficial virtue of reciting the 6-syllable mantra. So basically, actually, each syllable is how to say is a skillful means to stop you to be reborn in one samsaric cycle of the world. Like the Om is help you to liberate it from the suffering of the God realm. So you are not become a God after you dying. So actually the door will be shut down if you always recite Om Mani Padme Hum. The gateway to be back into this samsaric world will be totally shut down. On the Om help you to be liberated from the suffering of the God realms. You become God, you are too happy, you forgot the Buddhism teaching. You are not going to make effort to become Buddha. And the Ma help you to liberate from the suffering of the demigod realms. And the Ni, they help you to be liberated from the suffering of the human spheres of life and human beings. When I'm dying, I will not be reborn in this human world. I rather want to go to the Buddha land, the Sukhavati and the Western paradise of the supreme bliss. And the Pat is liberated from the suffering of the animal realm. And the Me liberated from the suffering of the realms of the hunger spirit, home, liberated from the suffering of the hell realms. So if you recite Om Mani Padme Hum constantly and countless times, you will be saved. So when you die, so you are not going back to this 6th circle of this samsaric world. You will go to the Buddha land, especially the Buddha land of the Buddha Amitabha. So if the time is very tight, I have to go fast. And that's actually the meaning of the 6-syllable mantras. It plays a big role. So in Tibetan Buddhism. So that's why actually everybody reciting this 6-syllable all the times. If you go to Tibet, you hear the sound everywhere. But actually, why I say actually the Tibetan Buddhism, the Avalokitesvara quote is even, how to say, significant and popular than it is in mainland China or China proper, among Han Chinese. So there is a myth of the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara in Tibet. So if you knowing something about Tibetan Buddhism, we know the story from the very beginning. So that when the Buddha Shakyamuni, before the Buddha Shakyamuni went to Nirvana, he was asked by the Buddha Amitabha, saying, stop, you are not able to go to Nirvana now, because one place is still not saved, still totally in darkness. Then the Shakyamuni asked Buddha Amitabha, said, where? Said, Tibet. Then the Shakyamuni said, no, that's not my duty anymore. So I rather want to go to Nirvana. Then the Amitabha has to ask his spiritual son, the Buddha Amitabha. That means the Avalokitesvara. So Avalokitesvara has no other choice. And he went to Tibet and saw, wow, the Tibet is indeed in darkness. And it brings him to tears. And then the 2 tears from his 2 eyes, and it came out 2 taras is of the loving kindness, became the mother of 2 taras, of the 2 mothers of liberation. And they made the decision that we are going to save Tibet and transform Tibet from the total darkness into a Buddha land. That's why the whole story goes on. So the Avalokitesvara is the embodiment of the great compassion and the loving and kindness. And he is designated for transforming the dark Tibet into the Buddha land. So there's a long story. If you think the first story, I think the Tibetan, has the myth of the monkey unification with the demonics and gave birth to Tibetans. But in the late Tibetan Buddhist history, the monkey became the earliest manifestation of the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So he had the sexual intercourse with the demonics. Is not wanted to fulfill the lust and the sexual desire of the demonics to produce Tibetans. So Avalokitesvara is the progenitor of all Tibetans. That's why the people say that Tibet, half Tibetans are good, but half are bad. They came from the two constructing figures, like the progenitors. And then the Avalokitesvara taught Tibetans how to cultivate the land and produce the food. And when the Tibetans, they're more than enough, and then they're able to build their own country, then the Avalokitesvara became incarnated as Songtsen Gampo, the first king of the Tibetan kingdom. And then the Songtsen Gampo brought Buddhism into the snowland of Tibet. And then the princess Wenchen, the Wenchen Gongji, is considered as a white Tala. It's a consort of Avalokitesvara, together with other Nepalese princess who represents the green Tala, and to help Songtsen Gampo and to bring the Buddhism into the Shiniland, the snowland. And the Buddha lives finally reached the top Tibet. That's a story of the Avalokitesvara. So in Tibet, there's a long development. So eventually, actually, the Tibetan tradition and the Chinese tradition of the Avalokitesvara cult, Avalokitesvara worship, became sort of like a united one. Because the Tibetans, the Mongols, and the Han Chinese was designated, how to say, their own Bodhisattvas. And then the Tibetan became the tamed land of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, which represents the great compassion. And the Mongolian became the tamed land of Bodhisattva Vajrapani. It represents the great power. And the Han Chinese, the China proper, became the tamed land of Bodhisattva Manjushri. It represents the great wisdom. I think this is a long tradition. Actually, but based on the Tibetan belief of so-called Vesun Gongbo, the how to say the Bodhisattvas of three Buddha families, like the Avalokitesvara is from the Buddha family of Lotus. I think so. For this concept of the three Buddha land, the division of three Buddha land is also developed by Mongolian Buddhist historians. Is a long story, but in this way, actually, we see so Chinese Buddhism like sort of united in the Bodhisattva code, the Bodhisattva worships. But still, I think is not only the Guanyin or the Avalokitesvara became the protective deity of the whole Tibet. Still also, how to say, believed by Han Chinese. You see the Totosan. We also have a joint point in Wutaisan. So Wutaisan is a power place of the sacred site of the Bodhisattva Manjushri. The Tibetan Buddhism made their, how to say, presence in Wutaisan very visible. And the Avalokitesvara code is also very flourishing in Wutaisan. And then came actually the Mongolian Buddhist, the Manju Buddhist. Actually, when we said the three Buddha land of Bodhisattvas, the Han China, the China proper was represented by the Manjus actually at that time. The Guanyin, what to say, the Qianlong Emperor was the most famous, the Bodhisattva Emperor. And he is actually an emanation of Buddha, Bodhisattva Manjushri. Represents the great wisdom. So, and the other question is, we are now a lot of living Buddhas. So in Tibet, a lot of Rinpoches in Tibet or in China. We're often saying there's 100,000 Rinpoches along in Chaoyang district in Beijing. So who are those living Buddhas? Are they true living Buddhas? I would say the living Buddha is a good expression, not like Chinese Huofo, because the Fo actually is not alive or dead. But the living Buddha is a good. So the living Bodhisattva in our world. The Bodhisattva is the person who will manifest according to the needs of all the beings to be tamed. That means the Sui Ji Being. And the Bodhisattva is already reached the Buddhahood. He can become Buddha, but he vows to not to become Buddha until the samsara is empty. So we are still suffering. The Bodhisattva have to stay here in this world to help us to be saved. That's the whole meaning. So the living Buddhas, actually the most living Buddhas in Tibet or elsewhere is a reincarnation of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. So they are Guanyin Pusa. So if you don't call them Huofo, they are Guanyin Pusas. And one other things I have to mention on the in the end, actually, the Avalokitesvara code in China proper or in Tibet it is based on the same principle. Actually, the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara will help all the sentient beings, save them in all difficult situations, and eventually bring them to the Pure Land of the Western paradise of the supreme bliss, where the Buddha Amitabha dwells. But the way how to do it is different. So in Chinese Buddhism, you praying, you make offerings to Avalokitesvara, and eventually, actually, Guan Yin Pusa come to take you into the Western paradise. But in Tibetan Buddhism, we have much for how to say the powerful means to do it. So you can practice the Avalokitesvara through these yogic practices. For example, in the heat, Zoho, and the transformation of the spirit, Powa, to the Buddha land. And the whole, and now is actually became legendary practice of a Powa, which is the real meaning, is to transfer your mind directly into the Buddha land. That's the whole purpose and the motivation of the Powa practice. And that's the Tibetan Buddhism. It's actually the tantric way of practicing the Avalokitesvara code. The basic principle is the same, but the way how you practice is different. It's the exotic, esoteric Chinese and Tibetan Buddhism, a different way. So there's still a lot to be taught, but the time is already over, so I have to stop here. And thank you very much for your listening. Bye. Oh, maybe. Okay. So now we have some time for questions and answers. So if anybody have any questions, please let me know. So how do we think about the conflict among so many religions, as well as they always boast each other? It seems that in ancient India, such conflicts and promotions happened very often. Thank you for your question. I think it's a very big issue you raised, and difficult to give you a satisfactory answer. I think they are religious conflicts, and so only way to solve this kind of conflict is to promote more interreligious interface dialogues, and to understand the common ground of all religions. So I just showed a good example. So people often think the Chinese Buddhism and the Tibetan Buddhism are totally different, and they have different approach to the Buddhahood, or the practice they're doing are totally different. But I showed vividly actually the Buddhism, the Buddhist tradition in Tibet and in China, China proper is basically the same. Only actually we have different practices or a different way of practices.